So when I was in the first year of my IGCSE program, year 11, I hated learning. I really hated it. All I wanted to do was run home and play video games. I was in the lowest level of maths. I hated maths. I hated English. I hated studying books. I hated studying poetry. But within like 2 years, I got to this point where I loved learning so much that before bed, I was reading the physics textbook. In university, I graduated with an A, doing an engineering degree, which had a ton of maths in it. So I went from hating maths in IGCSE to absolutely loving maths so much and getting good grades in it. And honestly, in university, like, this is not to flex or anything, I'm not a genius. I just learned how to love learning because I think it's completely possible. And I enjoyed most subjects that I did in university. You know, there were a couple that I hated, and I'll get into it in this video, why I hated those subjects. But most subjects I loved. And I did a huge range of subjects. I did math subjects, science subjects, business law subjects, finance, languages, linguistics. I did all these subjects and I learned to love them. And I think you can learn to love studying as well. Because there is this like narrative that I hear online where people say like, oh bro, you know, stop trying to make studying fun. It's meant to be painful. It's meant to be boring. And I completely disagree with this. I'll tell you why I think this is the case in a second, but I do think everyone can learn to love studying, learn to love learning. So, you know, I'm not going to give you the quick fix that I see in these kind of videos where it's like, bro, just use colorful pencils, just, you know, have a friend, just give yourself a cookie after you study. I'm going to get to the root cause of why you hate studying, and I'm going to break it up from the inside and completely, hopefully, change your mind. That's my goal with this video, at least. So, okay, this is why I think it's possible to love learning. Because the reason you hate studying, it's actually not your fault. It's the fault of the education system and society. So as kids, when we're born, we're all naturally curious. You know, I remember when I was a kid, I was asking like a million questions. I would ask my dad, like, how does this work? How does this work? And he would try his best to answer me. But I was just super naturally curious. And then I went into the education system where suddenly learning went from this thing that was like fun, exploring the world, learning a bunch of new things, to this thing that we needed to do to pass a test, to gain the validation of our parents, to gain the validation of our teachers. The education, learning, became this thing that we need to do to pass. And so it became stressful. We started associating stress with studying. And the really, really sad thing, bro, the really, really sad thing is most people stop learning after they leave university. And in my opinion, this is very, very sad because learning is how you improve your life. Learning is one of the most beautiful things in life. Understanding concepts about the world, understanding insights about the world, gaining knowledge. So that's what I want to bring back to you in this video, how to actually like studying. So first I'm going to go really, really broad here and explain like a big picture understanding and then get really small. So pay attention to the entire video. So first of all, you need to change your mindset to bring back that curiosity you had as a child. Because the truth is we can love to learn anything. And so what you need to do is you need to approach your subjects with an open mind, like a scientist. You want to be curious, you want to be exploring the subject. You know, when I learn maths, I'm excited to explore this beautiful abstract world. When I'm learning, you know, business law, I'm excited to learn this thing that's literally like integrated into society, and I, you know, gain interest. I put emotions around what I'm learning. I love to learn physics because it's like the world around us and everything. So how you develop this curiosity is going to depend on person to person, but approach the subject with an open mind, with excitement. And I know maybe it sounds a little bit cringe, but how do you approach subjects now? You probably approach subjects with the mindset of like, oh man, here we go, we have to study again. Oh, I've got a test next week, I've got to study. Oh, I'm so bad at maths. You know, you have all these negative emotions and thoughts around studying. And so simply shift that to a positive. Get excited to study, look forward to it. You know, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not like tonight you're going to go study and you're going to be so like excited. It's something you develop over time by changing how you talk to yourself in your head and actually bringing your curiosity back that you do have deep inside you, that you can use to learn and love learning any subject. Now I want to give a disclaimer here. You know, you're not going to love every moment of every subject. You're not going to love every assignment. Completely true. And the second thing is, this is not going to be like pleasure type enjoyment. It's not going to be like as fun as a video game. Bro, the mobile device, I'm recording this on a phone. Studying is not going to be as fun as your phone. Your phone is literally the most addictive, pleasureful source that we have in this modern day. And studying cannot compete with the phone. And look, the pleasures that come from phones, that come from video games, that's a whole nother argument about why it's bad for you, but it's not going to be able to compete with that. So actually the happiness, the enjoyment you're getting out of studying is not pleasure. It's actually more of like a fulfilling kind of happiness. And I learned about this from the book called Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi or whatever. And that's what I want to explain about now, how to approach your subjects so you enjoy them. Because like I said, it's not going to be pleasurable like video games. It's actually, there's going to be effort required to learn your subjects, and that's completely true. So there's this quote I want to read from you to you from this book that I think is really, really impactful. So it says, "The best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile." So what this book says is that actually some of the greatest moments in our life, the most fulfilling, enjoyable moments, are when we're actually challenging ourselves and doing something kind of difficult. So that's the kind of fulfillment, happiness you're going to achieve when you love studying. It's not going to be like pleasure like video games or pornography or something. So you need to embrace the challenge, and I'll tell you how exactly to do this and how to actually make this fun and approach this in an enjoyable way, because it's not as painful and horrible as it sounds. So to achieve this flow state and enjoy what you're learning and embrace the challenge, it has to be at the right difficulty level for you. So if you're trying to learn, for example, vector calculus, and you have only a foundation in mathematics, you're going to struggle because it's going to be too difficult for you. So you need to learn something that's at your level. But chances are, if you're doing the subject in high school or university, chances are it is already at your level. So you just need to approach the subject in a right way to keep the challenge at the right level. Because here's the problem. Because often this will happen to me, like I'll be learning a subject and I won't understand at all what's going on and I'll hate it. You know, for example, what would happen to me is I would be reading the textbook of a subject and 5 minutes would go by and I would realize I'm not even thinking about what I'm reading. And I would have to come back and read that same thing. And I would read the same paragraph over and over and over again, and it would get frustrating. And this is because what I was doing was too challenging. So I'm going to tell you how to bring the challenge down a little bit. So first of all, you have to make sure you understand the fundamentals of the subject. So if you're not understanding a chapter, for example, last year I did this power subject, and I was not understanding any of the chapters at all. And I realized it's because I didn't understand this fundamental thing that we needed to know for the subject. And when I actually went and learned that fundamental, suddenly the chapters started making sense. So if you're doing trigonometry and you don't understand the fundamentals, you got to learn that first. So start with the fundamentals. If you're not understanding something, maybe there's like a concept that you're missing. That's the first thing. The second thing is slow down. Take your time with these subjects. Don't rush through them. Don't just memorize a bunch of formulas. I love calculus in maths, I really do. But I hated it at first because my teacher, the way he approached it, was he made us memorize how to do calculus. He made us memorize how to do derivatives. And I started to hate it because I just saw this as this like monotonous process rather than actually understanding what's going on. So that's the second thing. Slow down with your subjects and make sure you're really understanding what's going on, not just memorizing. And again, these things are going to bring the difficulty to a good level so that you actually enjoy what you're learning. And so it's actually a good challenge for you and not too difficult. And the next thing is, so has this ever happened to you? You don't understand a certain concept, something you don't understand, but then someone explains it in a way that makes you suddenly understand what the thing is. So that's the thing. Maybe you don't understand what you're learning because you don't understand how it's being explained. For example, there were many subjects I did. For example, my maths teacher in IGCSE, I don't want to insult him or whatever, but he made learning maths so boring that I started to hate maths. So maybe your maths teacher is just so boring that you hate it. Or maybe the textbook you're reading, you don't understand it in the way it's being explained. So the next thing I can tell you to actually enjoy learning and to bring the challenge to your level is use different resources, use different perspectives on the same material. If you hate the way your teacher explains the material, if you hate the textbook, the way the textbook explains it, that's fine. Use different textbooks, use different materials. And here's a big tip I'll give you. Use YouTube. YouTube is literally a gold mine when it comes to learning. There is a ton of material out there. For example, in high school, in chemistry, I found a YouTube channel that was literally super well produced, really, really good teacher. And it was a YouTube channel purely on the exact diploma I was doing in chemistry. It was literally a gold mine, and that person explained it better than the textbook, explained it better than my teacher. So go into YouTube, use different resources. There is so much material on YouTube so when I did linear algebra, I loved linear algebra in university because there was a playlist on YouTube called The Essence of Linear Algebra. It was a beautifully produced artistic series on linear algebra that helped me understand it from the bottom up. So go into YouTube, look for these like resources. As you get later in university, it's going to be harder to find these resources. Like in my last years of university, when I was doing these very niche engineering subjects, I would be lucky if I found a video on one of those concepts. But especially if you're in early university and high school, get different perspectives on the material. Look for stuff on YouTube, look for stuff online, attack the material from different perspectives until it clicks and it makes sense. So this is all about bringing the difficulty of your subject down to your level so you understand it. Because most students, they'll just learn the material from their teacher. And for me, I really hated going to lectures and going to classes. I never learned stuff in classes or lectures because I would be mindless for 5 minutes and suddenly I wouldn't understand what's going on in the class and I would be behind for the entire subject. So if you can't learn through the class, learn outside of class, learn from different materials. You know, if the subject is so hard, you don't have the prerequisites for it. For example, I did this one subject, I think it was called Distributed Systems. I didn't have the prerequisites for it, so I hated that subject and I ended up dropping it. So if you hate the subject so much, drop it if you really can't understand it. So that's how you make the subject more into a flow state where it's not too difficult that you're getting anxious and you're hating it, or it's not too easy that it's boring. It's exactly the perfect level. And now the final thing I want to tell you is another way to make learning very, very fun and enjoyable. And you want to make it into a video game. Now, I'm not going to explain this in a cringe kind of way, but basically what makes a video game so fun? A video game is so fun because you get instant rewards. You get instant feedback, positive feedback. You know, you shoot a guy, you get a headshot, and then on your screen appears like 300 XP headshot or whatever, right? You get instant rewards. So if we can put this instant reward system into our studies, we will start to love it and enjoy it a lot more. Because if you're like me, I love like progress. I love, you know, getting rewards. Like the reason I love going to the gym so much is because I love, you know, beating my previous high score from last time and lifting more weights. So the problem with subjects is you don't get those rewards until after your exam. You know, you're studying a maths chapter, you don't get any rewards. You only get the rewards when you get your grade back. So if we can bring rewards literally to today, we can start to enjoy these subjects more. We can make it like a video game. And how you do this is through testing, specifically past papers. So I loved exam season because through exam season, I would just spam past papers. Now this works better with maths and science subjects because you can do a lot of past paper questions. But the sooner you can jump into questions, doing questions, the sooner you can get that like positive feedback loop and actually start like getting addicted to it and enjoying it. Like I loved printing out a bunch of maths past papers, sitting in the library and just grinding through them. It was like a video game because if you get a question right and you like tick it off, it's like the gears are moving in your brain, you're understanding the concepts, you know, you're out there actually solving problems. That's where it gets fun, that's where it gets addicting. So in my opinion, jump into past papers as soon as possible. The problem is students, they'll wait till they like master the material till they jump into past papers. But this is completely unnecessary. So what I learned recently from the scientist Andrew Huberman was that testing, even if you completely bomb the test, is actually good for you. It's learning. You learn a lot through failures, through mistakes. So even if you don't have a master of the material, jump into papers, start doing questions, even if you're getting them wrong. Every time you do an iteration, every time you do a paper, every time you do questions, you will get better and better and better. So get into this phase of doing questions as quick as possible. Get those feedback loops going and you'll enjoy it. And if you don't have access to past papers or it's not a subject where there's past papers really, then find a way to test yourself at least. You know, ask yourself questions, see if you understand the material, develop this positive reward loop in the subject. This is the final thing I'll tell you about how to enjoy subjects. I'll leave you with one final warning. Every moment of every semester is not going to be fun. There are going to be some assignments that suck. Maybe because they're too challenging. Okay, now I'll give you one final tip here on how to enjoy assignments particularly. So like I said, if you want to get into that flow state, if you want to, you know, embrace the challenge and enjoy it, it has to be not too difficult or not too easy. It has to be right at your skill level. So the problem with a lot of assignments is you literally don't know how to approach it. Like this used to be the case with like essays for me and coding assignments. I would see the specification, I would see like the assignment, and I wouldn't even know where to begin, and I would just be overwhelmed. I would procrastinate and I would leave it to the last week. So the way to bring these assignments down to your level is to break them up into small bits and look for some area that you can actually tackle. So if you don't understand at all the assignment, the coding assignment, go through it and look for like the starting place. Where's the place you could start? And start there. Start tackling that. And once you build that positive momentum, like I said in the previous thing, that positive feedback loop where things are starting to work, then it will develop that momentum. You'll get going in that subject and you'll start to enjoy the assignment as well. Like one of my favorite parts of university was honestly doing coding assignments, because like I would get so into the flow. I would start to obsess over it. It would be like a project I'm working on in my life, you know, but I would always start hating them because I wouldn't even know where to begin. So go enjoy studying. See you later.